Get started in just a minute. Maria, when she sent the Zoom link yesterday, she sent around a worksheet that Melanie's going to use today for the presentation. If you haven't printed that and you have the ability to do that, you might want to print it real fast. It's just a one-page PDF that we're going to be using today. So if you have a moment to print that, go ahead and do that.
I love seeing faces. If you guys can turn your cameras on, then we can take a picture and put it out on LinkedIn. One more Zoom meeting. Woo! Oh, look at all those faces. Smile, everybody. Yay.
I feel like there should always be a disclaimer if there's going to be a photo of a Zoom meeting these days.
No one can even see it on LinkedIn because it's like this big, you know. That is like the great thing about Zoom, like during this time is I feel like, you know, it gives you a little bit of a makeover. Like you don't have to have much done to your face, you know, you're like, okay.
Yeah, until you start using Teams and it doesn't have the blur feature. And then you really miss Zoom again.
I love it.
Now I have the alarms going off.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Yeah, they test the sirens, I think, once a month, right around noon.
Okay.
You can tell who lives near each other.
A little loud downtown. Ah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started so that we can stay on track. Oh, I forgot to screen share. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Thumbs up. Okay, great.
Thumbs up.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Wyrick. I'm a partner at Coppertinus Woodward, and I'm also one of the DWLA co-chairs for the mentoring circles this year. We're so excited to kick off another year of mentoring circles, and we're really thrilled to have all of you join us this year. So on behalf of the entire committee, just want to say thank you so much for your commitment for this year, for being willing to share your time with this incredible program. And we hope that it's a really great year for everybody. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Please make sure that your name that you have on your Zoom is the name that you registered with, so that whenever we go into breakout rooms later, Maria can identify everyone according to their circle. If you have a different name and you need to change it, we've got instructions right here. Just click in the top right hand corner, and you should be able to rename your name. And then another item, when Maria sent the Zoom link yesterday for today's presentation, she attached a PDF that's going to be the worksheet for today for Melanie's presentation. It's just a one-page PDF. Mentioned before to a couple people, if you have a minute to print it, it might be easier to have it handy. If not, you can just make some notes on some paper. Just wanted to share the agenda for today so you all kind of know where we're headed. I'm going to give just a brief overview of mentoring circles. I know a lot of you have joined us before, but we also have some new faces this year. So just want to give a brief overview of what this year is going to look like. Then we're going to introduce our speaker and have our presentation by Melanie Schaefer of Talent Suite. And then at the end, for the last few minutes, we will break out into rooms with our circles and kind of go through a few things that Melanie talks about today. So just a brief overview of Mentoring Circles. Mentoring Circles this year is in its 6th year. It was started by one of our former DWL and DWLA presidents. And really, Mentoring Circles is about community and connection. We all kind of come together for the common goal of helping women succeed in this profession. And I think that really starts with connecting with other women lawyers. I think I've seen that more in the past year than ever, as I'm sure many of you have. I think I've been in Mentoring Circles every year that we've had it. And it's contributed a lot to my career, to just me personally. So I hope that it is fulfilling for all of you as well. And we're really excited about the group that we have this year. Our theme for this year, and I'm going to give Chelsea credit for this, is thriving in the new normal. I was thinking about it, and I think next week is the year anniversary, if you want to call it that, of shelter at home orders. Feels crazy in a lot of different ways. So I think for a lot of us, last year was about surviving, just figuring out kind of the day-to-day, adapting to all the changes that happened. And 2021 hasn't started off much better so far. It's been, a rough 2 months for most people, I think. But we are where we are. The future looks bright. I know I'm really optimistic about the pandemic, hopefully the end of it being in sight. And so, we want to try to transition from surviving to thriving. I know I've felt like I'm in a fog in a lot of different ways. And so I could use some encouragement to kind of shift my focus a little bit, and hopefully that will be helpful to you all as well. I know Melanie's going to speak to that. We don't know what the new normal looks like. I think we can all agree that the new normal is not going to be what 2019 looked like or 2018 looked like. I think there are changes that are probably here to stay. I think the legal profession is going to be forever changed in some ways. And so, again, just we want to focus on how do we thrive in the new circumstances we find ourselves in as we kind of come out of this pandemic, as we hopefully start to be able to connect with each other and get back to some of the, relationships and in-person connections that we're used to. How do we thrive in that environment? Because it's still going to be a lot of change going forward. So that's our goal for this year. And we hope to be able to achieve that starting with today's presentation. Just to give a brief overview of the circles themselves, we have divided you all into 10 different circles of 10 to 14 lawyers in each circle. And you'll find about half mentors and about half mentees in each circle. Although I think, we're really all mentees in certain aspects. We can all learn from each other. We did our best within the circles to try to pair some people together that are in similar roles or similar practice areas, but you'll also find a mix in every circle because, of course, we learn from those who are similar to us, and we want to form some of those connections, but we also want to, have you learn from people that are different from you and have you make connections with people in other practice areas and other roles. Just sorry, my watch is talking to me. Just for today, just know that if there are not many people from your circle here today, when we go to the breakout rooms, you may be in a different circle, but hopefully you'll connect with your circle soon. So just know that for today. So just a little overview of what this year looks like. It's going to be the same format that we've had in past years. If you've been part of Mentoring Circles, we're going to have 4 large group meetings. And, the first is obviously today. And they're all going to be on Wednesdays at noon with a speaker or a panel. I anticipate the May 19th one will also be virtual as well. We hope to be able to move sometime during the year to some in-person events and be able to connect with each other in person, but we'll just, play that by ear. And then we're also going to have, encourage you to have at least 3 small group meetings throughout the year during kind of our off months. And we will be providing materials and discussion points for those small group meetings and sending you reminders about those. So we hope that you all would take advantage of those opportunities. As far as scheduling goes, we really encourage a mentee in your group to take the lead on scheduling those events. And again, we'll send you reminders and help you stay on top of that. The large group events are great. I know I always learn a lot from the speakers that we have. The community really happens within the small groups, within getting to know each other, sharing ideas, discussing, issues you're dealing with. And so we really encourage you all to make the effort with those small group meetings. I know we all are tired of Zoom, and it's not the same as being in person, but you can still form connections by Zoom while we're in that world, and then hopefully later in the year, figure out ways to be able to get together in person. My favorite year from all of mentoring circles was the year I had a circle where we met throughout the year, and I really got to know the individuals. I still remember those people. I still remember those conversations. So we just encourage you to really take advantage of the mentoring circles that you have, and stay on top of scheduling and getting together. Even if it's just a few of you, people always drop off at the end, but whoever can, meet when you can. And we really, hope that the connections that you form there will be helpful throughout the year and beyond. Just want to take a minute to introduce you to the Mentoring Circles Committee for this year. We have a really fabulous group of DWLA and DAYL members that are coming together to put this program together. This is my first year on the committee, and just blown away by the women and just their commitment and contribution to this committee. So just want to thank them. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. We have one listserv down here at the bottom. So that's the best place to email if you have questions throughout the year. And you'll be getting emails from us throughout the year on large group and small group meetings. And for today, I want to thank, in particular, Alexis Swansea and Kathleen Klein. They put together today's program with Melanie. And so just appreciate their efforts on this. And I'm going to turn it over to Alexis, who's going to introduce our speaker to you all today.
Hello, thank you so much, Lindsay. It really means a lot. And like I said, a large amount of credit goes to Kathleen Klein and the other members who have put this together today with, taking applications, emailing, and sorting all of everybody into their circles. So without further ado, I know we are on a tight schedule. Melanie Schaefer is the CEO and founder of Talent Suite, and you can kind of read a little bit about what Talent Suite does, and I'm sure she will tell you in it. I had the opportunity to be in a program with her last year, and when we're going from surviving in 2020 to thriving this year, you need to know where you are. And, we can have a panel that says, oh, this is how I determine where I am, but maybe seeing it and hearing it in a different way will help you analyze and evaluate where you are today to determine what you need to do to thrive, or if you need to change anything at all. So without further ado, I cannot wait to turn it over to Melanie.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to ask to share the screen. Thank you. All right, so I'm I'm going to jump into my deck here. All right. Well, good afternoon, ladies. I'm sure some of you are enjoying your lunch and others of you are probably multitasking, doing 5,000 things at the same time. But I'm going to make this short and sweet to give you time to be able to talk about this in your circles. And really the intent here in this 30 minutes is to give you some kind of simple concepts to think about and apply it in those conversations to make those meaningful conversations. And so really my personal mission, and it happens to also be my company's mission, is to build stronger, more productive workplaces and people. I came from a background of retained search, and I was a CPA before that. So I was in public accounting. I understand your world. I've been in professional services my entire career. And I founded this firm in my early 40s because I felt like talent management was broken. I felt like I had a job of slapping Band-Aids on things and listening to two sides of every story. And I really kind of felt like an unpaid therapist. And so that's why I launched Talent Suite, and why I'm here today is we do things outside of, Alexis knows me a lot through the facilitation with the Leadership Dallas and Lead YP programs that we do at the DRC. But we also implement behavioral analytics and systems, and we do succession planning, career pathing programs. We do all kinds of things to help companies and people be stronger together. And within the model that we're going to be talking about today, everything that we do as an organization falls under what we call talent optimization. And this is a very simple discipline that in organizations, all of us and all of you, even personally, know where you want to go this year. You have your strategy of what you want to accomplish, and you're going to measure that somehow through results. The part that gets difficult is that messy middle piece within talent optimization, which is that execution through people. And we help organizations as a whole put intention around those four legs of the stool of understanding their people through diagnostics. We help through 360s and pulse surveys, engagement data, as well as how do you put the right teams together through design? How do you look at the people you have against what they're trying to do? Because the work has changed. You guys brought that up early on. So we've got to help people to be able to flex and adapt. That's that design piece. And we're going to talk some about that today. That's some of, what we're going to talk about falls in design. How do you flex and adapt? As well as we help organizations with hiring, interviewing, onboarding. And then once you have people in the organization, how do you continue to develop and retain them? So what we're talking about today really kind of falls some in design and also some in inspire. And everything that we talk about has to do with a whole person. So we believe that, the whole person comes to work, and there's parts of people that are fluid and there's parts of people that are fixed. So in working with people to understand themselves, we teach them the part of their wiring, their behavior wiring that's really, it's fixed when you hit your early 20s. That doesn't change. What changes is your values. What changes is what you experience. What changes is what capacity you have to give in your life. Do you have kids yet? Are you at a stage where you have more to give? And are you someone who has a lot of personal hobbies and interests? All those things impact that heart. And then the briefcase. You guys all have different briefcases. You all do different things, and you're all at different points in your career. So in helping people understand themselves and helping them to work better with others, we educate them on the whole person. So in talking today, it's going from what a lot of us have felt like was constant being on and that surviving. And I don't know about you guys, but this last year, sometimes I had a hard time getting out of bed because I felt so overwhelmed and just exhausted. It's like it never stops. It's like I've worked harder in this last year than I've ever worked in my entire life. And I would love, if we were in a room together, I'd want you to raise your hands where we could all see each other on that question, because I assume if you're in professional services, we've all been doing that to some extent. So we want to talk about how can we shift from that mentality now that hopefully we're seeing an not certain end in sight, but the beginnings of an end, or at least Governor Abbott thinks there's one. And that could be a whole nother webinar, right? Just on that. But how do we shift from that mindset of like, oh, it's never going to end, to, okay, let's start thinking about what this is going to look like now, the new normal. Well, in thinking about how we think as humans, there's something I learned years ago, and I am not a neuroscientist. I wish I was. If I could go back and redo my education, it would be in neuroscience or psychology. But what I've learned and what I do is this cognitive triangle is a visual of how we take in information. And it's circular because our brains run in a loop. And our brains are impacted interchangeably, you can see, by both what we take in as thoughts and also how we feel about it. And it's a circular way of operating. So our behavior is really always a result of a combination of our thoughts or feelings. So in order to break that loop of the way that our brain takes in information, and we're going to talk about that, you have to disrupt the cycle. You have to shift your perspective. And a lot of times we have to be forced to do that because we get in a rut, especially in the last year where we've been in the same place, dealing with the same things and not getting out and gaining a lot of new perspective. And we all know that our feelings this year have been unlike anything we've probably experienced before. So in thinking about how we operate, what's interesting is that we have actually over 50,000 thoughts in a day. 50,000. 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. So it's the same loop going through there in that triangle, which produces the same behavior. That's why we got to disrupt it. What's even more important to know in thinking of moving from surviving to thriving is that our 80% of those thoughts are negative. So that's why we talk about the ants in your brain, the automatic negative thoughts. That when we are in a situation and we're in our natural state and our brain is running in loops, the things that are at the front of your mind are negative the majority of the time. It's why the media focuses mainly on catastrophes and disasters and people that have, done horrible things, right? So today we want to kind of squash that, how do we crush those ants? Because they're there. We can't get them out of our brain. They're part of how we get things done. We only have less than 1% of our brain we can consciously control. So when you think about these ants that are in here today, this time, and this simple concept is really shifting your mindset when the ants enter and you have this thought to something question oriented about that thought. So, and there's an example here, but one that's even not at work that happened to me yesterday that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to bring this one up, is I'm playing tennis because now that I'm not driving everywhere, I can actually have time to go do a lesson for an hour. And I'm not very good at getting lobs back over the net. And my coach was working with me on these lobs, and I didn't even realize this, guys. I was saying, oh my gosh, every time a lob would come over, it's come out of he stopped me and he goes, do you know what you just said? And I said, I don't know. He said, you said, oh my gosh. And you say it every time I lob you. He's like, if you say that, you're not going to get it back over because you've already decided you can't do it. And I was like, because I was preparing this deck, it was like a aha moment for me of like, okay. And so I changed that to my automatic thought being, I can do this, right? Like I got this. So every time he would lob it, I would think, I'm going to try. I've got this. And I started getting it back 50% more of the time. Now, was it perfect? No. But my percentage rate of success went up drastically by that one shift, just knowing, having someone tell me out loud that I was saying something that was blocking me from progress. And these questions, if you printed your worksheet, are not on here. But I would love for you to, in the notes, maybe write the one that resonates most for you when you get those ants in your brain. What is the thought here or the question here that maybe resonates for you? For me, the one that resonates most is, what else could this mean? Because I tend to, like, my friends gave me a shirt that says, let me overthink this. So for me, I love what else could this mean, because it disrupts the loop of negative thoughts that are constantly going in your brain. So I want you to write down on that sheet, or if you don't have the sheet, on a piece of notebook paper that you have open, which of these questions will be your question to stop the ants, to break the cycle, break the loop. And you might want to take a picture if you'd like. If you're like, I don't know, maybe I want to think about all of them, Melanie. Maybe you're like me and you like to overthink everything. So take a picture there if you would like. Okay. So this is the other thing. Alexis said, do you have any like podcasts or books or anything that you want to share with the group? And I always try to make everything I talk about very relevant to the topic. And I'll tell you, I heard Mel Robbins Keynote in end of 2019, this 5-second rule of hers. She does a hour-long keynote presentation. By the way, if your firm has the money to book her in the future, she is an amazing speaker. I was captivated because I was like, this is going to be so dumb. How can anyone talk about this for a whole hour? Oh my gosh, her story of how she came up with this and what happened in her life and how she overcame it is amazing. But I'm going to give it away here at the end, or maybe the middle of what she says. She says your brain runs in this loop. A way that you can stop when you know that ants are in your brain, and she doesn't talk about that part, but I'm talking about this part, is count backwards. If you can't remember the questions I gave you there, count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It works. When you leave here, go do it. I do it sometimes when I can't fall asleep and the ants are in my brain and all I can think about is what I have to do the next day. And I'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sometimes I have to do it a bunch of times. So anytime I'm in something where I'm overwhelmed, I count backwards and I use my question. I use my question of, what else could this really mean? You know, is this really a fact or is this my opinion? Okay, so those are 2 quick wins. So we've thought about some little action things that we can do that anyone can do. Alexis and I talked about, you know, we all are going to get places through maybe some practical things that are the same for all of us, but there's also parts of us that are different based on where we have natural strengths and where we have areas that we navigate that are our blind spots. So before we can go into thinking about that, we want to give you an overall model now, moving from, we know there's these ants, we know there's a lot of a loop running. We know we need to stop and ask questions and maybe count backwards. And now we want to think about, where are we? We need to diagnose, where are we today? So I am going to launch a poll here. And let me give you a second before I launch that. So I'm going to explain this model. This model was actually developed for education, but it has been carried through to corporate America, and even in leadership models, they use this now in thinking about how you support and challenge your team as a leader. And they have different words that they put in here. So I love this model because it's literally interchangeable across any group of people trying to get something done. So the concept behind it is, you know, it's a model to talk about how much challenge do you have right now in your current work situation. Are you in a situation where maybe what you're doing is not stretching you very much? Or do you have a lot on your plate, or something new, or, you know, you've taken on a leadership role at the firm, or whatever it is that's really giving you a lot of challenge? At the same time, what type of support are you getting? Are you getting some support, or do you feel like, wow, I have everything I need to show up at my best? The ideal spot to be is obviously in high performance, where you feel you have the adequate amount of support and you have the adequate amount of challenge. People tend to move, if they're up here, down through kind of stress and panic, and maybe up and down, and that's okay. You're not going to stay in one zone on a static basis. It's going to be fluid where you move in this model. Now, if some of you here have been at the same firm for a long time and you feel like, man, I am in my zone. Comfort zone is not a bad place to be. In fact, for me, I had several years when I was trying to have my second child and going through a lot of infertility that I stayed in comfort zone because I needed it. I needed my job to be something I didn't have to put a lot of mental energy into because it was all going to my personal life, right? Where we don't want to be is down here in apathy and inertia, because that means really like we're not getting support to do anything new and we're really not being challenged. So we're going to work every day feeling like our brain is atrophying. And I've been there when I came off the back end of trying to have my second child, and, you know, great stories that he came and it was all good. You know, I stayed probably 2 years too long after that, where I was actually bitter going to work. I hated what I was doing because I was so bored and so unsupported. Didn't have the right people around me. Just, it wasn't a good situation. So all of us have been probably in all these zones at some time. You know, this zone is a common one, and I'm sure in the last year is a very common one for all of us. So what I want to do here is I'm going to launch a poll. And now that I've explained that, I want you to vote. What zone of that model do you feel like you are currently in? You guys are quick. Holy cow. I want to work with you guys all the time. It's like Johnny on the spot. Love it. Women and attorneys getting stuff done. Okay, 90% of you voted. All right, we're up to 92. I'm going to give it like 15 seconds. If anyone else wants to vote, now's your time. All right, I'm going to end the polling. All right, can you guys see that? Can you see the results, everyone? Nod your head if you can. Okay, good. Okay, so it looks like this is really interesting. You know, I'm not surprised to see that half of the people here are in currently stress and panic, because I think that's what I'm seeing across the board when I'm talking with groups. I see some of you are in high performance, so that's really interesting. And with the comfort, that part surprises me to see so many people in that area. So that's really, I guess, positive that a lot of people are in a point where they feel like they've got the support they need, and maybe they're not challenged right now, but this gives some interesting conversation to talk about in your breakout groups as far as where you sit and why that is. And I also wanted to be able to show this to you guys so you could see where your peers are. And I wish we had an hour as a group where we could talk about this, because of course, like my facilitator nerdiness wants to like dive into this with you as a group. Why don't we do this? Would you guys be willing to chat in? Let's have the people here in the stress and panic. What's giving you stress and panic right now? Would you be willing to just chat that in? And it can be, you know, somewhat generic. I know you don't want to call people out. It can be things like, you know, workload or, you know, outside of work challenges. Workload. Oh, imposter syndrome. Work plus homeschooling. Deadlines. Managing workload as a new attorney, waiting to hear for bar exams. Lack of control, balance. Moving to new city, workload is down. Client panic and stress. Okay. And those are things, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot going on too with the kind of current situation with balancing kids and not having predictability there, with also the job. Moved into a new home. Okay. Oh, I love it. I want everything done. That's awesome. Okay. So that's good information to kind of see. I'm curious on the flip side of it. Those of you that are in high performance, what would you say you would attribute that to, that you might be willing to share there in the chat? So if you're in high performance, what do you attribute that to? What type of support do you have? Anybody from high performance? Drive an excellent team at work and home. Supportive spouse, friend, and team. Support at work and at home. With husband and I be able to begin going into our offices in a safe way again. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of transition going on right now. I think that's really tough and puts you in that kind of stress and panic. Childcare by school, nanny and husband, but again, it varies day to day. Okay. All right. So we're hearing that maybe there's some support kind of at home that takes some of the load off at home. So, these things are good to know in thinking about your other speakers. I'm going to stop sharing the results here because it sounds like it could be great to have someone that talks about some of how to balance all these things, or maybe even a speaker on talking about how you negotiate with your spouse, or, on shared responsibilities. I've heard some excellent speakers on that, so I'll have to give you guys some names there. So this is good stuff. Okay, well, I think the point of that, knowing we have a short time, is really for you guys to know you're not alone and that you're here together. And so when you're in your circles, you're going to be talking about maybe what is stressful and how you could change that. And Alexis and I are going to talk about how we change some things for ourselves in that stress and panic zone. So let me go back in here. All right. So part of getting out of that zone is knowing what is making me feel this way. And I get that deadlines can't change, and that was what a lot of you guys wrote, but how you handle deadlines can change. And that's what Alexis and I are going to talk about, and kind of what we talk about with how we process information and this model. So she and I both have taken predictive index, which is what we use in the behavioral analytics. And I wanted to give you an example based on my wiring. You can see here, I'm a persuader, but my needs are that I need that executive summary. I need things given to me in small pieces. I don't like being down in details for very long. In fact, I drop balls if you put me in work that requires a lot of that. So I'd be a horrible attorney, by the way. And I really don't like rules. I don't want to follow a structure. I want to do it my way. So for me, a lot of times I end up in stress and panic when I try to take something that is creative and I put a time on my calendar and I think I'm going to get all the way through it. And then I realize with my low ability to focus for very long, because I'm like, and my really kind of blind spot for me is putting structure around things. I tend to just spin and nothing gets done if I block out an hour. So if I have something complex or creative, I chunk it out and I do it early on, even though, I know new things are going to get put on me. And just like you guys, I have a lot of unexpected deadlines that happen to me. So I take things that I know are going to need to get done and I chunk them out in 30-minute increments. And the other thing I do is give myself every day to get out of that panic zone. And I tell my assistant, you cannot schedule here 30 minutes of white space. And it has been life changing. So it's 30 minutes for anything I know that is going to be coming 2 or 3 weeks out that I need to start thinking about, like a new presentation, a new speaking deck, a new training that we're writing. And I just start because I get the support that way. It gets me up in a high performance because in that 30 minutes, I get stuck and I realize I need to talk to someone else about this. I need to go do some research. I need to put this away and let it settle in my brain and come back to it. So for me, that's been something that's helped me get up to high performance. And I didn't realize that until I was in my early 40s that I needed to do that. It's been a result, honestly, for me of COVID, of having so much on me, I can't get it done. And that's been my coping mechanism to get me out of stress and panic. Doesn't mean I'm not there, guys. We all have some stress and panic, but it gets me up to high performance more often. So Alexis, I would love for you to share because her story is so interesting.
So I am a new attorney. I just got into year 3, and I always felt I was in the stress and panic zone. And I've actually taken, I heard this from someone else, but I started chunking out what I'm supposed to be doing because I get faced with this project and I have no idea what to do. There's no examples of how to do it. There's no, I used to be a very black and white person. And so the fact that you're asking me to write something that has never been done, no one's ever worked on it in the firm, like you don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. It's overwhelming, especially if it's a bigger project and everything, or like a 50-state survey on this one area of law, and you want me to do a manual for the client. Like it's a lot for me. And that put me in the stress and panic mode. And that caused me to procrastinate because I'm very opposite of Melanie in mine. I'm a specialist. I don't like, it's not the fact that I'm wrong. It's, I feel bad that I'm wrong. I don't mind you calling me out on it, but when I'm wrong, that is the worst thing in the world because I felt like I disappointed you. I disappointed myself. Like it was rough going in math in school because I was wrong a lot, but that's kind of where I was. And the thing was, I was like, I have to be perfect. You're not going to be able to look at all of this. You're not going to be able to check my work. What am I going to do? And so I pushed it off and I just had to start making that file. Can I research 15 minutes on this one state? Let me just write out what I found on this state. And in that, doing those little things has caused me to move forward with the project. And something I realized when looking at this model and what resonated with me was it was my perception of support. It wasn't the fact that I wasn't supported. It was I was perceived that I had to do it perfectly, otherwise I'm going to get fired. That there is a black and white answer, there is an answer, but a lot of times in law, I had to accept that there wasn't one. And more importantly, my supervising attorneys on this project weren't expecting me to be perfect. Of course, they would like it to be done right and have the right law, of course. But they weren't going, they know that I don't have all of the answers all of the time. And they're not expecting me to draft something perfectly on the first try, especially whenever they do. And me understanding that is what put me from stress and panic into high performance. I think Chelsea Hilliard, who's a mentor of mine, really kind of summed it up. You rather have it done than nothing at all. Like you got to start, you got to be able to do it. And I think a combination of that moved me from that stress and panic mode constantly into high performance. I think you should always do a good job, but it is to be able to move up into that. And so it was my perception of the support. I was letting those ants get in my head. Like, if I don't have this right and perfectly researched, I'm going to lose my job, or they're going to be so disappointed in me, which was even worse than probably losing my job in my own mind. So that's kind of where I was looking at. And I have a question for Melanie. When you're kind of in your comfort zone, in your high performance, how do you determine whether or not you need to move into high performance, or when it's okay to be in comfort zone?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was thinking as you were kind of talking about how we address that, because it really depends where you want to be. If you're in comfort zone and you feel like this is good for me right now, like I like being here and I'm learning enough and I'm getting a lot of support, then that's great. Where we don't want to be is apathy and inertia, which means, hey, like I'm not getting much new work and no one's really offering to give me new work. Right. So we know maybe we want to move up to comfort zone because we're someone that likes right now being in a state where we feel like comfort zone isn't a bad thing necessarily. It means you're in a spot where you know what you're doing, you've mastered what you're doing, and you feel like everything that comes at me, I'm pretty well prepared for it. So that's not a bad place. A lot of it has to do too with how you're wired. I don't ever want to be in a comfort zone. I told you I did for like 2 years of my life because it was a very personal heart thing that was happening to me. But because of my wiring, I always want change and I always want to be up in high performance. So sometimes I can get myself in trouble staying here too long. And then it like pushes me down in stress and panic because I take on too many things. So it's all about, for you, what are you looking to accomplish right now? In high performance, the assumption is you're looking for challenge. You're looking for a lot of support to go along with it in whatever fashion you need it. And I loved Alexis's point that it's not that she wasn't getting support. It's that she was assuming, because she was like, I have to be right, that she had to do it without support. So for her, it was a perception gap. For me, and where I needed support, it was a working against my wiring issue. I was trying to sit there and figure out something that someone with a much more ability to bear down on something for a long time would probably be fine. They'd probably be fine working that way. I'm just not. I couldn't get it done. So it's really knowing what works for you. But yeah, there's no right or wrong here on comfort zone is it may be what you need right now. So, we can't always be in the high performance zone. It's what we want to be most of the time, but that's not life. We're humans, right? Did I answer your question? Okay. All right. So let's talk about, coming together here, what we've discussed. Alexis said it beautifully. Get your mind right. Get rid of those ants, crush those ants, ask that question that's the most logical for you, and, count backwards. It's little things that we can do. And then look at where you are. And you guys knew right away. I love how confident you guys all are. It was like 30 seconds you had that question answered. And then we're going to talk about how you can assess yourself, like what Alexis and I have done, understand maybe why we're in a certain zone right now and what we need to do to shift, because Alexis, her insight came both from the model and her wiring. She was creating her own low support. So how do we take action? So in taking action, kind of bringing it home, we've talked about that loop that our brain thinks in. And self-awareness, by the way, doesn't happen overnight. That information that we showed you, where we really focus on people's needs, not so much their behaviors, and that's why I had the needs bolded and a red on top of it, that's what you can address. You can feed your needs, because people actually are not very self-aware. So this research, if you want to go Google a TED Talk for 10 minutes, Tasha Eurich from Harvard Business Review surveyed over 5 years, 5,000 people. And she found that 95% of people thought they were self-aware, but actually only 15% of people actually are. So that means there's 85% of people out there that don't fit. A lot of times it's the second component of self-awareness, which is how you impact others. For Alexis, it was like, well, I wasn't asking for help, right? Like that need she had for that, I got to get it right. It was impacting her to not go ask for help. So what about how I'm driven impacts other people positively? And where do I need to think about modifying some of how I work with other people, as well as how she fed her needs? And I was teaching a group earlier this morning that someone had Alexis's profile. And it was really interesting because she said the shift that she had to make mentally, knowing that she has a need to get it right the first time. And it's really scary for her to put herself out there without information. Her mind shift was, you know what? Let me start with what I do know. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so positive. Instead of, I don't know this, I've never done it before. And then she would go into stress and panic. So what do you need most to show up at your best? Because unlocking the whole leader is a journey. Unlocking, getting to a place of thriving is a journey. We can't do it in 30 minutes. So as a takeaway of your time today, we wanted to offer you some things to continue that journey, because we see everything we do, and especially with women's group, is like my personal passion is helping women thrive. I absolutely love this work in helping women become best versions of ourselves. So you're going to get an email with a link to take the 5-minute PI behavioral survey. And if you take it, then we are going to be doing a virtual session just for your group on April 6th at 11:30. So it would be like a lunch and learn. It'll be an hour. And Summer Paylett, who is an amazing facilitator, will be doing a session with you guys on how to align your needs to that support and challenge model. And in that hour, she'll have you go into breakouts together. So it'll be a fun session where you get to learn about your results and think about, how does that apply for me based on what she showed me about her profile and Alexis to where I'm trying to go to thrive. We also are going to be launching a women's whole leadership cohort in the fall of 2021. So again, if you take the PI, we can send you that information. And then we do work outside of this. So, we don't do just leadership development training or one-on-one executive coaching. That's part of what we do. We work with whole teams and whole organizations on talent strategy. So if your firm was looking for a way to help people in the organization, like hire the right people, get the right people in the right seats, help people understand how to flex and adapt, we use diagnostics for that. And we use a lot of strategy and methodologies that we've learned through other parts of our careers. So I just want to thank you for your time today. I would love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn right here. If you would just send me an invite from today, I would love to have you in the community. And then our company is Talent Suite LLC. There's another Talent Suite out there. So don't connect with them. I'm just kidding. Connect with us. And we share all kinds of thought leadership around overall workplace improvement and, leadership development and behavioral, information. So thank you for the time today, for asking me. And I'm going to turn it over, I believe, to Alexis.
Hi, me again. It's just like a bad smell. It just keeps on coming back. Chelsea's like, no, don't say that. I'm sorry, this is recorded. Anyway, so quickly, we are going to transfer to your breakout circles. If you're not in the circles that you don't recognize any of the names from the people from your email that you got before this presentation, just know that's because your circle couldn't make it and we just don't want you to be alone. So we're going to just shift you in there. You do not need to come back after we put you in your breakout rooms. We're going to keep the breakout rooms open to 1:15. If you have to get off at 1, we understand, but we wanted to give you enough time to really meet your circles and discuss what you want to discuss. Make sure to introduce yourself and, discuss the handout that we've given to you. There's 3 questions. And remember that your next up is your small group meeting in April. We'll send a recap email and make sure to remind you, just like Lindsay said, but just make sure you connect with your group, be a leader, and really reach out, make sure. And don't forget about the April 6th date that Melanie mentioned about taking your PI. Again, we'll send out the link and stuff in the recap email. So be looking for that if you want to take your predictive index for that. So whenever Maria is ready to shift y'all to the circles, that sounds good. But thank you.
This was intended for your circle discussion. So if you want to use this to have a reason to talk outside of small talk, I'm not a big small talk fan myself. You guys can small talk all you want if you want, but if you would like, you can use this. All right, guys. Bye. Have fun.